The Angry Marks Podcast Network is brought to you by WrestleWork, a social network to connect, create, and share everything about pro wrestling. Check it out today at WrestleWork.com.
And now we move on to this weekend's show in Montreal, UFC 186. And for those in the Ottawa area, you can listen to Live 885's Morning Startup on Friday morning, where I'll be discussing this card with the Morning Startup, and should be a good time as always.
Send me the audio so we can put it on YouTube.
Definitely will do that. Main event is for the flyweight title, Demetrius Johnson against Koji Horiguchi.
You nailed it.
Yeah. And
you've obviously been watching some of the countdown videos, because usually when you get the Japanese or the Russian or the Polish names, those are the ones that give you trouble, but not this time.
No, some names give me fits, and some names I can nail, no problem. But Horiguchi, he is lowly ranked. I think he's, number 7?
Yeah, he's not way up there, but this is the best guy available to face Demetrius. There was nobody left to face Demetrius Johnson. This is what they're left with.
It's not so much a who's next conversation in the flyweight division. It's a who's left conversation. And I'm sorry, when someone is 17-1, and he's your who's left option, that says a lot.
Yeah. Again, this is why whenever you bring up the idea of Demetrius Johnson going back up to bantamweight, I'm like, why would he? Until he cleans out the entire flyweight division, and he's well on his way to doing that, he should not even think about changing weight classes. He should just be happy to be the king of his mountain.
Are you talking about DJ or John Jones at this point?
Well, John Jones has been given a tough test by a couple of guys, whereas I don't think I've really seen Demetrius Johnson in trouble in any fight.
No? Since that going down in weight, he's been pretty much unstoppable, so...
Yeah, the last guy to give him fits was Brad Pickett.
Yeah, that was a while ago, so...
That was a while ago.
Now, obviously, smart money has to be on DJ, but would you be surprised if Horiguchi wins the title here?
I would be as surprised as if the Supreme Court heard Rampage Jackson versus Bellator. That's how little chance I would give it of DJ losing.
I think the smart money would be on Johnson, but, if you had some extra bucks and putting on an upset pick on Horiguchi, you might make some decent coin there.
Yeah, well, you could have made decent coin if you bet on Chris Camozzi, but he wasn't going to win, so you weren't going to make anything.
We move on to the semi-main event, and we just talked about it a minute ago, Quinton Rampage Jackson against Fabio Maldonado. That moves up to the semi-main, bumping down Bisping and Dollaway, but we'll get there in a second. For this fight at 215, is Jackson the favorite here, or do you think all the inactivity and all the legal troubles will get inside his head and he won't be put on the Rampage performance we have come to expect from him?
Honestly, I wouldn't worry about Rampage at this point since he's going to fight at a catch weight. I think that plays in his favor in terms of being ready and prepared to go out there and have a great performance. And there's not a line on it right now because this news just broke, so all the books have taken the line off, where previously it was Maldonado and Bossy. Now it's just blank. So we'll have to wait to see what the odds makers think, but my personal bet is that if it's a slug match between two guys who like to stand and trade, I'd favor the guy with more power. And we know Rampage Jackson has stopping power.
He does, but Maldonado isn't anything to sneeze at either here.
Maldonado is a brawler, but his best asset, and I can't tell you how many times I've made this exact statement on this very program, Maldonado's best asset is not that he can give a punch, it's that he can take a punch.
Yeah, but...
that guy has been in wars, and the reason he's
been
in wars is because he can take a punch better than almost anybody. He doesn't win all of those wars, but he survives.
But do any of those opponents match the punching power of Rampage?
No, that's why I'm picking Rampage with or without a line to look at. I favor Rampage, especially a happy Rampage. A happy Rampage that just won his appeal, that's getting to fight at a catchweight so he doesn't have to do a huge cut to get down to 205. This is going to be a happy, jovial, pleased, and ready to go to war Rampage. He's going to go out there and just have the time of his life.
I'm gonna make my patented upset pick here. I'm gonna go with Maldonado in this one.
Well, broken clock can be right twice a day, so you never know.
All right, moving on. Michael Bisping and CB Dollaway in I don't want to say a gatekeeper fight, but both fighters are coming off wins here. A win by Bisping. I'm not sure how high he goes up the rankings, but he would definitely go higher than where he is now. And Dollaway, by beating Bisping, he would vault himself into the top 10.
Right. Well, Bisping is the favorite here, minus 145. So I'm going to think that's a smart play and say Bisping is the winner in this fight.
I have to agree with you on this. I was leaning towards Dollaway, but I just have that sneaking suspicion Bisping's going to pull a rabbit out of the hat here. But did you notice in the countdown special, they tried not to focus on Bisping's eye that's been buggered?
Yeah, well, he tries not to focus on it. Every time they do a countdown special, that's the last thing in the world he wants to talk about, because to him, it makes no difference what happened to his eye. He's still a fighter, and he's still going to fight.
But you have to think that the eye is going to be a target for Dollaway.
It's a target for everybody that fights him. The only question is, can you actually hit it?
With his speed, that'd be a tough task.
Yeah, Bisping is no pushover.
Now moving on to another catchweight fight at 160, John Makdessi against Shane Campbell.
When did this get changed to a catchweight?
I heard it's up to 160.
Okay, well, that would be news to me, but I mean, whatever. If UFC wants to do it and they both agreed to it, then fine. They can fight at 160, whatever.
I think it's one of those things where it might change by the weigh-ins, because, I mean, if they've agreed, they've agreed, but as far as I know, it's up to 160 at a catchweight. So the weigh-ins are on Friday, so we're going to have some interesting talking points because of the weigh-in with see what kind of shape Rampage is in at the weigh-ins. I know it's still a catchweight, but you know as well as I do that at the weigh-ins you get to see the fighter's body. You could see some of them, they're at a trim cut 170 or whatever it is, and some fighters look like, they're not in as good shape as they have been in the past. You know what I mean?
Well, when I'm looking at the odds right now on 5 Dimes, it doesn't say catchweight. It says lightweight. So
okay,
we're going to assume you're right for the sake of argument. But as far as the betting line goes, Makdessi is a minus 175 favorite.
I believe that for sure. It's going to be interesting as well. Now, on Friday, as people are listening to this podcast live, the Ottawa Senators and Montreal Canadiens are fighting in Game 4 right now as we speak. If there is a Game 5, I believe that is on Friday. Don't quote me on that. Actually, it would be Friday because the pay-per-view is at the Bell Center, so it has to be Friday.
Right.
I don't know where the weigh-ins are going to be, though. If there is a Game 5, I don't know where the weigh-ins are going to be for this fight.
This has happened before. This has happened to me in Chicago when there's been a Bulls game at the United Center. They just hold the weigh-ins at a little theater downtown.
Okay, fair enough.
So
I haven't heard where the alternate arrangements have made. I think they're waiting for what happens on Wednesday night's game to find out, you know what I mean, to see if they could use the Bell Center or not.
Yeah, well, either way, I'm not worried about the setup because I know I've watched the UFC crew put together the Octagon. I know they can have it done in a couple hours' time, so all they have to do is get in there really early on Saturday morning, and they can start constructing it then and have it ready by showtime.
And someone asked me why the series of Ottawa-Montreal is not being played on Tuesday as opposed to Wednesday. They get an extra day off because there's a concert at the what's it called now? Canadian Tire Center.
Right.
One Republic is in town. The concert is on Tuesday, so I had to bump the Game 5 of the playoffs to Wednesday.
Yep. Okay, then.
Yeah. All right, so also on the main card on pay-per-view, kicking off the pay-per-view, in fact, it's Yves Jabouin against Thomas Almeida.
Yeah, and Almeida is one of the bigger favorites on this one. He is minus 450.
I believe that.
Yeah, Jabouin is a durable fighter, but not on Almeida's level.
Is he done after this fight, do you think?
Could be. Might be. Depends on how generous Dana White is feeling. If there's a good live gate and everybody turns in a solid performance, then maybe not.
Yeah, he's definitely going to have to pretend like his back's against the wall in this one for sure.
Yeah, Jabouin better come out there swinging.
Speaking of swinging, former guest of the show, Patrick the Predator Cote, kicks off he's the main event of the prelims on Fox Sports 1 and TSN. He's fighting Joe Diesel Riggs. He's the man who shot his hand while cleaning his gun. I wish I could make that up.
We've talked about it on this show. Go back in the archives and listen. We've discussed this.
Still can't believe he did that. Like, it's like the first rule of Fight Club. You don't talk about Fight Club. The first rule in cleaning your gun, make sure that it's not loaded. Like, it's...
Well, this seems to happen more often than not. I mean, remember the NFL player who shot himself in the leg?
Yeah.
It's just one of those things.
Plaxico Burress.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Anyways, I've got Cote. Call me a homer. I don't care.
No, I don't have to because he's minus 195 on the line. He is the favorite here.
Yeah, I think
and they purposefully booked this fight. Either way, they booked it where they did to get the crowd excited before the pay-per-view.
Absolutely. And, it's a decent fight. I mean, Riggs is a decent fighter. We saw him in Bellator winning Fight Master, so he still has some gas in the diesel tank, so to speak.
I see what you did there.
And Cote, you can never count him out, so.
No, but he's the favorite for a reason. They gave him a winnable fight, and they're putting him in front of his hometown crowd, so he's going to get, I bet you, in the pops for the night for fighters when they come out, he's probably going to be like number 2 or number 3 loudest pop, like behind Rampage and maybe one other fighter.
Interesting fact about this show is this is the first time the UFC is in Montreal without GSP on the card since 2010.
Yeah, well, he's not out of retirement yet, so that's just the way it's got to be.
Do you remember that show? In 2010, the last time they were in Montreal without GSP? It was Machida and Shogun.
Oh, yeah. Well, we were just talking about that.
Mm-hmm. All comes full circle.
Yes, it does.
Now, this next fight, I'll let you talk about this one, because I'm very excited for it. I know you are as well.
What, Alexis Davis and Sarah Kaufman?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Kaufman is the favorite here, minus 190, and she's got a bit of chip over her shoulder right now. She feels like she's been skipped over by a lot of the women's bantamweights, and she's got a point to prove.
Absolutely. It's this has potential to be fight of the night, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would not worry about these two going for broke.
Now, is there any other fights on the prelims that catch your eye?
Well, Olivier Aubin-Mercier is a prospect at lightweight, and he came off that Tough Nation show looking like $1 million. So I'd like to see what he does with David Michaud. He is the minus 350 favorite on that. And, in fact, speaking of Tough Nations, we've kind of stacked it up with, Tough Nations fighters here. We've got Chad Laprise. He's minus 325 against Brian Barberina. And, Nadeem Talib and Chris Clements. And Talib is minus 260 in that fight.
I like the two, strawweight fights, actually.
Oh yeah, Riccozzi and Letourneau, that should be a good fight. And, Marcos and Daly, that would really be the one to keep your eye on, cause, those are two really good fighters. And Marcos is the 260 favorite right now over Daly, which, if you know anything about Daly, that would be the one to place $50 on, cause that could be an easy win for you. I understand why Marcos is the favorite, but Daly, she's a fire breather. If you doubt her, if you don't take her seriously, you do so at your own peril. Daly is tough.
I'm picking Marcos in that fight, but Daly, I mean, a win over Daly is something to brag about to your friends, I tell you.
Right. You are not getting out of there easy